a post and she didn't respond.
Oh.
Hello?
Okay, good afternoon everyone and welcome to the licensing subcommittee for SuperGroceries. We are now live on YouTube. If I could introduce the panel of councillors Charles, Welton and Page, and the first in order of business is to nominate and second a chair for the meeting amongst the councillors.
I propose Councillor Welton as chair of the meeting.
And is that seconded? You'll need to unmute yourself, Councillor Charles.
Yeah, I second that, yeah.
Okay, and are you content with that, Councillor Welton?
I am content with that.
Marvellous. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Can I welcome all parties to this hearing of the licensing subcommittee this afternoon? I just want to advise everyone that this has been live streamed on the council YouTube channel. Please be aware that as the meeting has been held virtually, there may be a slight delay. Participants will be muted when they are not speaking to reduce background noise. If anyone experiences technical difficulties, they should let the clerk to the committee, Mr. Seedhouse, know. In the event any part of the hearing loses connection and they are no longer present in the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting immediately for a few minutes whilst we resolve this issue. In the event the issue cannot be resolved, the meeting will be rescheduled for another date as soon as practical. Obviously, we hope everything works smoothly this afternoon. Before we go on, do any members of the subcommittee have any declarations or interests, or is there any apologies for absence? I think there's none. Brilliant. We'll move on then to the next part. Just to advise that the subcommittee will be following the hearing procedures, a copy of which was circulated in the notice packs, which were sent to all parties. If anyone has not received the paperwork, please speak now. Okay, I can take it everyone's received it. Before we proceed, I would just obviously like to ask the legal advisor, Mr. Bishop, to inform the subcommittee that we had a briefing prior to this hearing to confirm the procedure and clarification of any aspects of the application. Is there anything you wish to report, Mr. Bishop?
Nothing to report at this time. If there was any legal advice, it would be given to you in deliberations, and that's only when that would happen.
Fantastic. And I think in terms of the licensing officer, any technical issues, I think we have resolved. As obviously I explained at the outset, the hearing order speakers will be followed by the procedures that we have included. So without further ado, we will firstly go to SuperGroceries to present their case about why they should be granted this application for the licensing subcommittee. So I'll invite SuperGroceries to speak, their representative.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. My name is Robert Botkai. I'm a solicitor for the applicant. Patricia, I'll try and get this right. Patricia Polonix-Fagroski is here as well. Perhaps wave, Patricia. Excellent, good. So if you have any questions, she'll be pleased to help too. So SuperGroceries Limited acquired this store in November 21. Patricia owns the business together with a partner. She has two other stores, one in Hammersmith and one in Roehampton. It's a convenience store deli. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept. Roughly 60% of the customers are Polish, Eastern European, and the types of goods that she sells reflect the nature of the clientele. I grew up with Polish chocolate wafer cake, and I'm reliably assured that this is sold in this location. She sells fresh foods as well as dry goods. She has limited trading hours. She's open from 8:30 in the morning until 8 o'clock Monday to Friday. Saturday she's open 9 until 9, and Sundays just 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock. So she's not opening the extended hours of most convenience stores. And to reflect that, it's a very limited application. It's for alcohol only, for off sales, Monday to Friday, 10 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the evening. Saturday, 10 o'clock until 7 o'clock, and then Sunday is just 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock. She is intending that all alcohol will be kept behind the counter, so there will be no self-service of alcohol at all, everything behind the counter, and it's a limited range that she will be stocking. She's engaged with both the police and the environmental health officer, and the set of conditions have been agreed. That they are in your papers, and they're quite an extensive set of conditions. She's done this herself. I won't read them all out, but they're the sorts of conditions that you would expect if there were concerns about street drinking. So no beers, lager, ciders over 6% ABV, no single cans or bottles of beer, lager or cider, no spirits in bottles of less than 20 centilitres. It does say that in condition level, all spirits must be displayed behind the counter, and all other alcohol must be displayed in clear line of sight. But my understanding is that all alcohol will be behind the counter. She can't turn it into a full off license. Only a maximum of 20% of the retail display will be used for the display of alcohol. But I'm told by Patricia it's probably more like 10% that she's proposing. So a very small part of the firm of the store will be dedicated to alcohol. She's agreed in conditions to actively engage with the police team and the local licensing officer, and as you'd expect, all alcohol must be properly acquired from a proper wholesaler, and the conditions reflect that. Finally, that she'll operate a clear window policy so that she can always see outside of the shop for the immediate vicinity. Some of the conditions agreed with trading standards sort of duplicate the police conditions. I'm sure they can be tidied up should you be minded to grant the license. We have representations from two residents. Sue Cooper, I don't think is here today. She's referencing a previous application by SMAC, saying it was refused. I have checked that decision. It was refused in July 2014. The police made representations, and the applicant didn't engage with the police or with licensing authority, and actually didn't turn up to the hearing. And not surprisingly, the application was refused. That was in July 2014. So I think there were concerns about late night drinking at the time around the pond, Three Kings Pond, but that's unlikely to be affected by our application because of the limited hours that we're applying for. So I've not been able to establish what hours the previous they applied for in 2014, but if the concern was about late night drinking around the pond, one would assume that they were applying for much later hours than
it wasn't. No, it wasn't late night. It was during, especially the weekends, during the day. But I just add that so you're aware. I did sit on that committee.
I was only able to find the decision notice as opposed to the application itself. But the comment in the decision notice was that the applicant didn't respond to the conditions that were being put forward by the police and didn't turn up to the hearing. We've done the opposite. We have been liaising with the police. I spoke to PC Avril O'Brien on Friday, and she's satisfied with the application with the conditions that have been agreed by the applicant. And then Linda De Silva, who is with us today, she describes it as a beauty spot, and that she's obviously concerned that if we are licensed, it will attract drinkers to the area, creating rubbish and intimidating elderly people and children. This will be a very limited facility here. There is no reason to believe that it will add to any sort of street drinking issue. The policy is such that shops, well, you've got two aspects of your policy to consider here. First of all, your normal policy that shops should be able to sell alcohol to match their trading hours. And secondly, it is just within the Mitcham Town Centre CIZ. It's right on the fringe of the CIZ, which still makes it CIZ, but it is relevant that we're on the fringe of the CIZ. So you would still need some sort of evidence the grant of this license is likely to impact on the licensing objectives. Try to look at the sort of issues that were relevant to the formation of the CIZ, and that it focused very much on issues at Figs Marsh and Cricket Green, and ambulance data that were produced at the time that the CIZ came into place. None of that has been produced today. We're not actually in the town centre itself. So in terms of CIZ, we've considered the CIZ and very much limited the hours that we're seeking, and very importantly, the way that we're selling alcohol. So there will be no self-service, so there can be no theft of alcohol at all, because any alcohol will be displayed behind the counter. All of the staff are going to be trained, and by the conditions, they have to be trained at least quarterly and reminded of their obligations. So it's not just Challenge 25, but the duty not to sell to somebody who is already intoxicated. The police are your experts on crime and disorder, and they're satisfied that this license may be safely granted. There are no other representations from responsible authorities, which is, I would suggest, a very positive sign in a community impact area. As Guy will advise you, community impact policy is not an iron curtain. It's there to flag up that this is a sensitive area, and any application you receive is going to attract greater scrutiny. Certainly in my experience, most convenience stores would apply for licenses from 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock or midnight, or indeed 24 hours. That's not what you have before you start. You have a very tailored, sensible and prudent application. The hours sought are modest. The applicant has engaged with and agreed all of the conditions that your expert responsible authorities have asked of her, and so now has a very sensible operating schedule. We'd be grateful if you would agree to make this an exception to your policy, and grant this very limited license, say for the hours sought, being Monday to Friday, 10 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the evening, Saturday 10 until 7, and Sunday 10 until 4. So I hope that certainly the start time gives you some comfort. Certainly from experience, the early hours is often of concern to officers in an area that may have a street drinking issue, where we don't start until 10, and then very limited and early terminal hours and sensible conditions. Very happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Do any interested parties have any questions they wish to ask? I think we've got Linda Silva here.
This license
Not a statement, it's just questions at this stage. We will give you an opportunity to address.
Now?
Yes, any questions you wish to ask?
Yes, the license. I want to question the license. I mean, at the moment, they're saying it's still what time? 8 o'clock. How long does that last? I mean, will it change? Will it move to 11 a year from now, or 18 months from now? What security do we have that it will be such a limited license?
Okay, I'm very happy to answer the question. Hi, Linda. So
hello.
All right. So once the application is granted, then that lasts indefinitely unless somebody seeks a review of the license. So if you were unhappy with the way that license is being operated, you would have the power. You would be able to seek a review. But very importantly, from what you are asking, if we wanted to change the hours, and there's no plan to change the hours, but if we were to want to change the hours, we'd have to apply for what's called a major variation. And the major variation is really the same process as we've just been through for the new license. So we would have to put an application in, it would be received by all of the authorities, and blue notices would go up for 28 days, and we'd have to advertise in a local newspaper, and you would have an opportunity then to make representations against that application. So there isn't a creep approach here. This is the committee is only being asked to consider these limited hours, you would have the opportunity, as would all residents and authorities, should we ever seek to apply for longer hours. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I have another question. As you were told, my objection was the fact that it is a beauty spot. My theory is that these people that drink alcohol on the streets have a different behaviour to someone who takes the drink home and drinks it at home. I mean, round that area, having been through it before, because we are residents and we've lived here a long time, we have seen how the people who drink behave round the pond. They urinate, they're abusive, they defecate, and they do frighten females, and they frighten children, and they frighten the elderly. And this is something that the police try to correct, but their resources are so low, they don't have the manpower to protect us. And this is why I'm objecting. I just don't want to encourage that kind of behaviour at such a wonderful beauty spot. Why? What's the need?
Okay. To answer the question, the police have considered this application, and it's not a matter of sitting on the fence. They are satisfied with the application as it is. There is no representation. I hear what you say, and I hear what your concern is. If your fears were to materialise, and it goes from being a beauty spot to having problems with alcohol, which is clearly coming from our shop, then it would be a very straightforward review application, because at the moment it's a lovely beauty spot and you're not experiencing these problems. Were that to change with the grant of this limited license, then it's a matter that could be brought back to the committee. But I would hope that what would happen in practice, and if you're a local resident, that you would speak to Patricia first and say, look, we're having this problem, and can it be resolved? And I'm sure it would be resolved before getting to any sort of review stage. You mentioned the word need. It's not a factor in the license application. It can get a bit confusing, but it's not for us to demonstrate that there is a need for a premises license. Thank you.
Can I just check, do we have a disbursement order in that area at the moment? Is that why it's so calm and quiet? Or is there something else that stopped all the people coming to drink there?
I think just on that point, I believe there is some kind of dispersal order, but obviously somebody else may be able to advise on that point.
But that's my point. I think because there's a disbursement order, the police don't have an objection. Whereas before, when there wasn't one and smack applied, okay, the hours were different, but the problem was the same. And that's why they did object. Now, my argument is that disbursement
you
order
will get an opportunity
life.
to make a statement shortly, but yes,
right.
It's questions at this stage.
Okay, that's it for now. I'll make my statement later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And do members of the subcommittee have any questions they wish to ask of the applicant?
Yes, I've got a couple. Could you talk us through the products, the alcoholic products you want to sell on the premises?
Yes, Patricia, do you want to come in and say hello and explain the range of alcohol that you're proposing to sell?
Hello, I was just thinking about that. So we are not going to sell like cheap lagers or vodkas. We're going to sell like lovely spirits, liqueurs, and like more unusual beers. The prices of this kind of spirits and beers, they are like more expensive than the lagers you can get in the markets. So people who usually go somewhere outside to the gardens, parks, ponds, drink this kind of alcohol, they're not going to buy in our shop because they can't afford the prices. Usually there are people who like appreciate the taste of like more unusual spirits. So
okay, thank you.
And in sort of your business model, what proportion of your income do you expect to come from alcohol sales?
To be honest with you, we do not expect a lot from alcohol sales. It's like addition. So if you compare other Polish shops in the area or any other like stores, it's just going to increase our revenue based on the food sales, like lovely cakes, delicious cured meat, bakery, organic vegetables. But why we want this license to have? We want that just to get those people who go to the other store where they can buy also like nice beers, rather so they can come to us, and then they can buy everything with us. But it's just addition. So I wouldn't say that will be more than 5% of incomes coming from alcohol.
And then as your shop's been open, am I correct that your shop's been open since sort of November last year? So just for my clarity, you feel it's a viable and can be a successful business without alcohol sales, is that correct?
To be honest with you, we getting every day better, but it's not like successful. We would say we're surviving. We need something to increase our revenue.
Again, I think if I can help, Patricia, when we spoke about it, you said that part of the problem is that if you don't sell these spirits, these special spirits, the risk is your customers do all of their shopping somewhere else, and so it's the incremental sales that you're losing rather than the sales of the pure alcohol. So it's an addition of a small range of alcohol. You're still going to be a deli. You're not a supermarket. You're a delicatessen. You'll have a small range of alcohols behind the counter, and that will mean that you will be able to retain some of the customers that at the moment take all of their shopping elsewhere.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chair. That's all I had.
Members of the Councillor Charles, do you have any questions you wish to ask?
You'll need to unmute yourself, Councillor
Charles.
Yeah, not at the moment, thank you.
Not at the moment. I have no further questions I wish to ask. I think we'll move on then to the interested parties, unless the licensee wishes to add anything, Patricia. So we'll move on then to Linda De Silva. Linda, you have an opportunity to make a statement now to the panel.
Okay, I'm still against this motion. I still believe that one of the reasons the police are not involved is because of the disbursement order. However, a disbursement order is not for life. That can be lifted at any stage. And when that's lifted, then the situation could change, and it could change to the way it used to be before the disbursement order. Now, I appreciate that the lady wants to increase her sales. Who wouldn't? We all want money. However, she says her business is quite successful. I've seen the shop. It's a beautiful shop. And it does very nicely with its tea and its coffee. It doesn't need alcohol. It's just greed is setting in, I believe. My fear is what alcohol can do to people and how they behave. And it is such a beautiful spot. And it's so convenient for someone to come out with a bottle of beer and sit at the pond and just sit there drinking and intimidating all the residents who pay very high taxes, council taxes, for that beautiful spot. And it's just not representing the residents that live around there. And you're right, it is at the fringe. It is right at the end of the town. So it will encourage these people to stay up this end where it's a little bit safer, perhaps, to drink than down in the town centre. So, you have to look at the bigger picture, not the individual making a bit more sales for her business. She's doing rather well, and she can think of another idea to increase her sales. Think of the environment, think of the neighbourhood, think of the residents and the children and the elderly and the disabled. That's what I'm saying. And I hope this is recorded as for future archives or whatever, because this is the voice of reason, not of sales. Thank you.
Does the applicant have any questions they wish to ask of Linda De Silva?
No, thank you. I'll have the opportunity to sum up, presumably, at the end.
Will do, yes.
Thank you.
And do members of the subcommittee have any questions they wish to ask of Linda De Silva? Councillor Charles, Councillor Page?
Not from me, thank you.
I have no further questions I wish to ask. We'll then therefore go on to the next point in terms of the proceeding. Does the licensing officer have any comments they wish to make to the subcommittee?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've just got one comment to make. It's rather been mentioned already during the hearing, but just to confirm the council's licensing policy on this, there is a cumulative impact policy in place for this area. There's different ways of looking at the policy, and I would perhaps suggest it's more towards the middle of the cumulative impact area than being on the edge, but it is within the area. The council's default position is normally to refuse applications for new off licenses, which is what's being applied for today. That's not an absolute policy. It is very much your decision whether to grant a license. If you felt that the applicant has demonstrated they won't add to cumulative impact in the area, then you are very much within your rights to grant a license today. Just in terms of the reasons for that policy, the policy does go towards a lot of what Linda has been saying today around antisocial behaviour from people drinking in the street outside. And you've also heard from the applicant a large number of conditions they've offered. Those can be seen in your agenda from page 34 onwards. And I would just re-emphasise a couple of the conditions offered, that there'll be no beers, lagers or ciders above 6% offered for sale, no single cans offered for sale. And those are typically the kind of products that would be purchased by people drinking on the street that are associated with antisocial behaviour. The applicants also offered a further condition that's not in the list, that there'll be no self-service of alcohol. There was a condition offered that all spirits would be kept behind the counter, but what you've heard this afternoon is that there'll be no self-service at all. And of course, the total amount of shop space in the premises will be quite limited, so it won't be a full off license. Okay, thank you.
Does the legal advisor have any comments they wish to add?
Not in terms of legal advice. It is fair to say that there was an issue that I understood was occurring near the pond in this area in terms of drinking problems, which caused the cumulative impact policy to be put in place specifically for this particular area. But in terms of legal advice, nothing at this stage.
We then move on to the closing statements. The closing statements by interested parties. Linda De Silva, is there anything you wish to add?
No, I think I've covered everything. A few points on the conditions. I mean, the conditions really don't mean anything to me. It doesn't matter if they're behind the counter. Also, it doesn't matter if they reduce the cans or the bottles of beer. These people who drink are capable of drinking vodka or whiskey or whatever. So that's all I want to say about that. Thank you very much.
Okay, we then move on to the applicant, licensee and applicant for closing statements.
All right. Thank you. Well, we're sort of in the interesting position where the objector is describing it as a local beauty spot. There's no evidence today before you whatsoever that there is a current problem with street drinking in the area. The police, who would have been instrumental in the dispersal order and indeed the cumulative impact policy, are not objecting to this application. All of the conditions that the police have asked for and more have been agreed. So the issues of cumulative impact that were in place when the policy came in don't appear to apply here now. We're not applying for a complete off license where we can sell anything to anybody that comes into the store. It's a very restricted range. When Linda mentioned somebody drinking a bottle of beer next to the pond, well, they can't buy a single bottle of beer, lager or cider from our premises, and they can't buy a single can of beer, lager, and cider. Now,
They could buy a 4-pack.
they could buy. Thank you, Guy. Yes, they could. But you've heard from Patricia that this is not the sort of alcohol that she's going to be selling. It's going to be more specialist spirits to go with the delicatessen range that she sells in the shop. So in terms of off license, this is absolutely very restricted in terms of its size, in terms of its range, in terms of its hours, and importantly, the placement. Now, Linda doesn't think that alcohol behind the counter makes any difference. Well, it does, and your experts will tell you that it does, because it makes it almost impossible for somebody to steal alcohol. They can't walk into the store and take a bottle off the shelf and walk out. They have to be served, and they have to be served by somebody who's trained and is looking out for known street drinkers. If they all of a sudden come back to this area, they're not in the area at the moment. We've heard that from the objector. So there's no reason for them to start coming back again. We don't know if the dispersal order will be lifted, but if it is, it's because the problems have been resolved, and it would be for the police to decide on that in any event. And the police are not objecting to this application on the basis of the conditions that we've agreed with them, plus the condition that no alcohol, that there'll be no self-service of alcohol, and you've heard that it's a very limited amount of business. Now, Linda has described the store very kindly as it's a lovely shop. She somewhat twisted what Patricia was saying. Patricia wasn't saying that she's successful at the moment. It is a struggle, as I'm sure that the committee will be aware. With a lot of businesses, it is a struggle at the moment, and she wants to survive. She wants the business to be successful. She is losing trade for other items in the shop because they move to shops that have a range of alcohol. So she's looking to add a small range of alcohol in order to boost the rest of her trade. It's not greed. It's not fair to describe this approach as one of financial greed. She's trying to survive in business. It's a lovely local shop, and she's looking to you, the committee, to support this local shop in order that it can stay open and trade and become successful. Your policy is there. It's not an iron curtain. It is there for you to consider, is the grant of this license likely to add to the existing community of impact in the area? Well, if the existing community of impact in the area is simply not there at the moment because it's been dealt with, you've got the dispersal order, that may have had an impact, but whatever it is, nobody's saying that there is a problem in the area at the moment. And if that's the case, she's not adding to the community of impact that was in place when the community of impact policy was adopted, which was the street.
But she could be now.
Sorry?
But she could be now.
She could be now what?
Adding to cumulative impact.
Well, if the community of impact isn't there, what we've heard from Linda, and we've heard, and the police are satisfied that this will not be adding to the community of impact. If the street drinking issue is not there at the moment, what you're saying, guys,
because the cumulative impact policy was in place.
Can everything come through myself as chair?
Sorry, yeah.
It's unusual to be cross-examined during the
It's been addressed.
Well, we don't know what the reason is, Guy, for the area being a beautiful, a beauty spot and not having an issue. It may well be that the community of impact policy has helped with that, and the dispersal order, but there's nobody here to give evidence on that. The police aren't giving evidence. So these things do go in cycles, and there isn't an issue at the moment, and so there is no evidence that the grant of this license in its limited form would add to the community of impact that was there when this policy was adopted. So community of impact is a difficult topic. In my view, it was intended originally to control city centres, town centres with lots of pubs, and people were coming out of the pubs, and it was difficult to assess where problems were coming from. I appreciate that this particular policy is designed for off licenses, and that's why we've agreed all of these conditions to make it a really tailored, careful application, because we understand the concern. We understand you don't want to go back to the position that the area was in when the community impact policy was adopted. But what we're saying is that there is no evidence, there's no reason to believe that the grant of this very limited license, subject to these conditions, will result in that community impact returning. And if it does, it will be so obvious where the problem is coming from. If there's no problem at the moment, and then all of a sudden, because of this limited range of alcohol being sold behind the counter in this delicatessen, if that then produces the cumulative impact again, then we all know where it's coming from, and the license would be taken away. That's what the Licensing Act is. That's how the Licensing Act works. There would be a very straightforward review of the license, but I'm sure it won't come to that. You've heard from the applicant just how stringent these conditions are going to be. Your own experts in the police and your trading standards officer are satisfied with the application, subject to the conditions. And I appreciate we're in a community of impact area. You have a policy, but that you can make exceptions to the policy. You can move from the policy where you're satisfied that the grant of the license is unlikely to add to the existing community of impact. And we would say it's most unlikely, given what we're proposing, that we will add to any existing community of impact. So be grateful if you grant the license as agreed with the officers. Thank you.
Tony Hawkes, licensing officer.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify one point on the policy, that the cumulative impact areas are reviewed once every 3 years. The last review on this policy took place in 2020, and the current cumulative impact policy took effect from the 6th of January last year. And at that point, it was felt that there was an issue with cumulative impact. As I've already said, it is your decision whether you believe this premises will or won't add to that cumulative impact and the reason for the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of the next step, the subcommittee will retire to closed session, and I will also invite the legal advice and clerk to join us to provide advice. Once I've closed the hearing, our clerk will disconnect you from the meeting room. In terms of the next step, all parties will receive a written copy of the decision notice within 5 days. So therefore, I now close the hearing and thank you all for your attendance this afternoon.